G'day and welcome back to the channel. If you've been dealing with Achilles pain, whether it be from running, working out, or just everyday life, you're certainly not alone. For a lot of people, it can feel like no matter what you do, that Achilles pain just won't go away. But here's the thing, there's probably a whole range of basic standard things that you've already tried. But there's also a fantastic chance that there's a whole bunch of other things that may be helpful to you that you're yet to try. And that's why in this video, I want to share with you 4 Achilles pain exercises that you should be doing, but probably aren't. And it's worth noting that if you are a member of the Your Wellness Nerd channel, there will be an extended cut of this video that goes through a further 2 exercises for a total of 6 of things that you can try on top of the things that you may already be doing to help that Achilles pain go away. So let's get into it. So the very first exercise is one that goes after lower back dysfunction. This one often may sound the least intuitively obvious, but clinically for me, lower back dysfunction could be the hidden cause of why your Achilles has become a problem. Your body is a closed mechanical system. The tissue that's become sore for you, which in this case is your Achilles, is likely a consequence of something else going wrong in the system. Your spine plays a very important role in the function of your legs. The sciatic nerve that exits your spine controls a lot of your calf and Achilles function. So if you have some dysfunction at the levels where that sciatic nerve originates from, then you may have some direct dysfunction where there's a lot of slack pulled out of that nerve. Or if you have some dysfunction at certain levels that shut down the function of your hips or your calf or cause areas in your leg to become tight, then all of a sudden the environment that your Achilles is functioning within has the potential to be compromised so that when exposed to normal basic things like running and jumping over a set amount of time, you may slowly get to the point where that Achilles can't tolerate the environment that it's in. And whether you use a foam roller or a lacrosse ball, whether you do this in sitting, lying or standing is completely up to you. But one really interesting way to improve the function of your Achilles is by trying to mobilize any of the hidden restrictions through the joints of your lower back. And the fact that this may not be intuitively obvious for you to do, the one thing I'll ask you to do before going ahead with this exercise is stand up and immediately do a movement or an activity that lets you know how your Achilles feels. That might just be walking, that might be hopping or jumping, running, it might be calf raises. Do that first, take an immediate impression of how your Achilles pain and symptoms feel, do the exercise we're about to show you, and then having done that, immediately recheck how those movements feel. Because if you don't get immediate results or an immediate sense that you've done something positive that's affecting your Achilles, then this may not be the exercise for you. But having said that, how we do this is very simple. We want to go looking from the base of your rib cage down to the bottom of your lower back for anything that feels stiff, tight or restricted. So we can place the roller at the base of your rib cage at the top of your lower back. We can just get you to gently recline back over the roller. From here, we have a few options. If you have your hips on the ground, you can place your hands behind your neck. We just want to gently recline backwards as far as you feel comfortable. You may need a pillow or something here just to help support you in this position. But from here, I'd like you to gently roll towards the left side of your spine a little bit, then gently roll towards the right side of your spine to see which side of your spine feels the stiffest and the tightest. Once you've found something that you feel does feel a little bit stiff, we just want you to stay here, relax for 10, 15 seconds, a minute, whatever feels comfortable for you. Then once you've done that, you can systematically move the roller down a segment until you find the next stiff spot. You might need to relax back a little bit further. Just keep working further and further down your spine to the point where you may need to lift your hips up a little bit, have your shoulders resting on the ground, and you may also be able to come at it from the other direction where you drop those hips down. What we're looking for here is we are looking for sustained time on areas of your spine, the spinal joints and some of the soft tissues that you feel are intuitively restricted, they're thicker, they feel tighter, it feels more dense, especially when compared to the other side. So the second Achilles pain exercise that you should be doing but probably aren't is taking a ball and jamming it into the base of your heel. And the reason why this is potentially helpful for you is that much like the lower back exercise that we just went through, where one of the mechanisms could be the nerve as it exits your spine and goes down the back of your leg, if that is tighter than it could be, you're essentially pulling a ton of slack out of the system, changing the way that you load up that Achilles day to day. The same thing can happen from underneath. Again, you're essentially pulling slack out of the Achilles from below, thanks to a lot of the soft tissue, including fascia. This is another one that we need to base on results so that you don't have to trust past me. Take a ball, where in this case I've got a lacrosse ball, you can use a tennis ball, a baseball, a cricket ball, whatever you have lying around. Place that ball on the ground. You can do this in sitting if you want to, but you can get a lot more pressure and control through this in standing. And all we need you to do is, again, with your toes on the ground, heel on the ball, we just want to go looking through every aspect of your heel for other things that feel restricted, thick, a little bit tender, a little bit ropey, things that potentially shouldn't be there. And when you just gently work your way through this, try and find some tightnesses, try and ask those tightnesses to free up. As they start to soften, as the tenderness starts to resolve, any of those restrictions start to free up. Even just doing this for 10, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, go for a couple of minutes if it feels comfortable for you. Just a few minutes of doing that, you may immediately feel that when you recheck your movements again, that your symptoms feel some degree better. It's a very simple exercise and one that you can continue to do throughout the day if you feel like it does give you some genuine improvements in your Achilles pain from underneath. So the third exercise for Achilles pain that you might be missing is called the banded ankle stretch. In a perfect world, if you have your feet straight and you can create some rotation to stabilize your hips, bring your arches up into a good position, when you do a movement like a squat, your knees should be able to translate forwards in a relatively linear, stable plane. But if your ankle is a little bit stiff and you need more range from your ankle than your body has to offer to complete a task, your body can very easily try and find the path of least resistance to go around that restriction. And for a lot of people, that means when you get to the end of your ankle range, you might find that your feet want to turn out so that your knees can translate forward. Or if your feet stay straight, it can be very easy for your knees to feel like they dump inwards to again go around that ankle joint restriction. And that's important for your Achilles because as we look at you from behind, if you're in a really strong, stable position, when you bend and move, your Achilles should be loaded in a relatively vertical plane. But if you turn your foot out and then move forwards, or if your foot stays straight but your knee caves inwards, all of a sudden the directions that your Achilles are loaded is suddenly more of an oblique pattern. Again, fundamentally changing the way that you load up those Achilles while you're doing the things that you do every day. Further to this, if your ankle joint is a little bit rustier than it could, one of the purposes of your Achilles is to store and release energy, kind of like a spring. But if you rust up the mechanism underneath that, then all of a sudden its ability to absorb that force smoothly may start to be different to what's ideal. So something like the banded ankle stretch can be a very simple, specific, and effective way to mobilize some ankle joint stiffness, potentially creating a more optimal environment for your Achilles to function within. So what we want to be aware of here is, again, we want the band underneath the bones at the base of your ankle. We want you to step out as far as you feel comfortable, leaving that foot behind. We want to close down that back ankle. We don't want to lunge, but we just want to try and bend that back ankle as best as we can until you feel a gentle pressure at the back of the joint. Now, it goes without saying that if your Achilles is currently irritated, it's annoyed, just be very gentle with how you do this exercise. If you can find a position that gives you a really comfortable stretch that feels very positive and very successful, perfect. If you can't find an avenue to do this while your Achilles symptoms have flared, then put this one in the back pocket, come back to it when you feel like those symptoms have resolved a little bit more. But again, once you've done this, as soon as you come out of that, the idea is that you should immediately feel lighter and looser through your ankle. If you recheck your symptoms, whether it be some calf raises, some hops or something like that, this should just feel better for it. So the fourth exercise to try here is an exercise that goes after the rotational capacity of your hip. And much like the banded ankle stretch from before, if you are missing some rotational motion at your hip, when you bend down or squat down or run or move in a certain direction, it can be very easy for your body to dump into a position that it's not accustomed to because you don't have the range to hold it in a better position. And again, it's the leg positions that we may get into which can deorientate that Achilles and change the way that we load it up from above. So a really simple exercise to try is if you're just sitting in a chair, try and cross your leg, get your shin or your heel up onto the other leg. I'd like you to be up nice and tall. And from here, we don't just want you to bend forwards, I want you to be up tall, and from your hip, we want you to hinge forward from your hip until you find a really generous amount of tightness in the back of that hip. We need you to squeeze that tightness for 5 to 10 seconds, create that reflex in your brain so that when you stop tensing, it will give, then you should immediately feel that you can go that little bit further into the stretch than you could before. And as always, keep repeating that, give it a squeeze, 5 to 10 seconds, let it relax, it'll go further and further. To spice it up a little bit, when you get to that end range, you can gently turn your chest towards your knee or turn your chest towards your foot, just to see which angle gives you the best access to whatever hip tightness you may have in that hip. And then as I've been doing, once you've done that, hopefully you'll feel immediately looser through your hip, then immediately recheck your Achilles specific activities to see if it has generated any meaningful change for you, and then let me know in the comments down below. So with all that being said, the key to a successful and long-term Achilles pain rehab program may absolutely be filled with the standard obvious things that you may already have been given, but if those things don't include a step back to try and understand what about the lower half of your body isn't functioning correctly, maybe too stiff, maybe a little bit weaker than it needs to be. If we're not trying to understand why you've loaded up your Achilles differently, then we may never understand why it's there. We may never have a clear understanding of what you need to do to resolve this permanently. I know some of the exercises that we've just been through may not intuitively make sense to start with, but if we base everything on results, you'll hopefully see that one, if not all of those, might be missing pieces of the puzzle that genuinely make your Achilles pain symptoms feel better to some degree straight away and compound as you do them over the next few days, weeks and months. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you want more of this type of content from me. Please consider becoming a member of the channel. Memberships are only a few dollars and literally helps keep the lights on in here. But as always, I do genuinely hope that that was helpful and hope to see you next time.